Hey. Good morning. It's time to call the meeting to order. I welcome everyone. I'm Jim Patterson, Chair of the Committee of Adjustment. Before we begin, or actually as we begin, I'd like to remind you that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Township's YouTube channel. We'll be having a hybrid meeting today with attendees joining the council chambers and remote. We will follow all of our regular procedures and policies. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak on the matter, and I will call on you. For those in council chambers, you must speak into the microphone to be heard in person and online. Please use the speak button to start and stop. There is technical assistance available. When I call for the vote, I will call for all those in favor, followed by all those opposed. And you will physically raise your hand to vote in the manner you wish to vote. Now I'd like to call a roll. Please raise your hand and state your presence when I call your name. Committee member, Deputy Mayor Nelson. Present. Committee member Mark Porter.
Present.
Committee member Rob Lamar.
Present.
Absent. And committee member Rod Mann. Present. Staff, Secretary Treasurer Martina Shady Hardwick. In person.
Good morning.
Planner Emily Fitzgerald.
Present.
And Diana Key. EM Wills, Township Planning Council.
Present.
With all of the committee in attendance, I will call the meeting to order. For the land acknowledgement, we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the lands which are part of the 1818 Treaty 20 in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe bands of the Great Ojibwe Nation. We offer our gratitude to the Ojibwe for their care and knowledge of the lands on which we work, live, and enjoy. May we honor and respect their teaching and our treaty obligations as we grow together. I will now ask the committee members if they have any pecuniary interest in the item we're dealing with today. Seeing and hearing none. Thank you. Approval of the minutes. The last meeting was January 24th, 2025. The minutes were circulated. Need a mover and a seconder to receive and approve the minutes. Also move. Second. Thank you. And any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. So we have a minor variance application. A0125, where the Ontario Inc. Operating as PGF Holdings 1972-890. This would have a number. Planning discussion 2025-11. The applicant is in here, and the planner will now review the report.
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you, and good morning, everyone. Just a little introduction. My name is Diana Kay from Lee & Wills Associates Limited. I'm the principal planner and manager of planning services at that firm. I've also been retained by the township to provide planning services on an as-needed basis. I have Garrett to this file and will be making a presentation today. So for ease of reference, to introduce, please, thank you. Just going to share some slides for context and background of the subject property itself. Thank you. It's a little hard to see. I'm just gonna, yeah. I also have to raise you for minutes. Thank you. So this is the subject property. I'm just gonna find that a little bit right there. So the property that is subject to the application is located at 2809 Television Road. It is in the hamlet of Donwood. The nearest intersection is Television Road, Park Hill Road, which is under the jurisdiction of the city of Peterborough, and County Road 4, which is under the jurisdiction of the county of Peterborough. Next slide, please. Thank you. For a little more context, on the slide, you can see the hashed area. So while the subject property is about 6.44 acres, the actual development site is more around 3.68 hectares. Sorry, did I say acres? 6.44 hectares. 3.68 hectares is the actual development site. It has approximately 92 meters of frontage along Television Road, and that is the only access to the subject property. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan that was submitted with the application. I think it's good to have a visual for context, just to explain a little bit of the development. So the property itself, under the township's official plan, has two designations. So the property is all, sorry. This is the extent of the property boundary. It's just not working there. This section is also owned by the applicants, as well as this parcel here. This parcel and this parcel are both designated hamlet, while the internal site development area is designated industrial, and it also has a special policy area on it, and that just references the fact that a truss manufacturing plant is a permitted use on the subject site. The property has three zones, so the bottom portion that's zoned residential, this portion is zoned rural, and then the actual subject site, thank you, Martina, is zoned a special district 137, so it underwent a site-specific rezoning in order to permit the truss manufacturing plant. So the subject property itself, as I said, only has access from Television Road. There is a stormwater management facility located right here. There's parking that is existing along the south and western side of the subject property. The existing development is located right here, and it's just over 1,900 square meters. The proposed development, so the expansion to the manufacturing plant, is located in this area. The owner is seeking to expand the manufacturing plant with a 2,288 square meter addition onto the existing building. With respect to this application, there's quite a few variances being requested. 3 are new variances being requested in order to support the proposed expansion, while the balance of the variances are seeking relief for existing situations. So these are as-built situations that have been occurring on the site probably for about 20 years since the site was developed. So it's in line with the site plan, but was never captured under the previous zoning. So with this application, the owner is looking to recognize those existing deficiencies as part of the application. So more specifically, because there's a lot going on, I will actually go through each of the variances just to kind of bring it up to the front, and that it's on everybody's mind. So with respect to the new variances as a result of the proposed expansion, the application is seeking relief to increase the total maximum ground floor area of all principal and accessory buildings and structures from 2,000 square meters to 4,270 square meters. They're looking for a reduction in the north of the yard setback, which is located on this side of the subject property, from 115 meters to 45 meters. And they're also looking to remove the regulation that requires accessory structures that must be attached to or touch the principal building use, as well as have a minimum separation distance of 30 meters from any western, southern, or northern lot lines. So western, northern, and the southern lot lines. The application is also seeking a reduced parking ratio. So the existing parking ratio is 1 space for every 36 square meters, and the application is seeking 1 parking space per 72 square meters. So essentially, they're looking to maintain the existing parking and not require any more as part of the expansion. With respect to the existing deficiencies, so these are the deficiencies that are on site, those impacts have already been established over the past 20 years. They are looking to recognize the existing westerly setback. So from the existing structure to the northerly setback, or sorry, the westerly setback. The required is 70 meters and the existing is 69 meters. They're looking to recognize the existing height of the garbage enclosure, which is located right here. The requirement is 4.5 meters and the actual size is 5 meters. The balance is going to be very hard to see, but it has to do with planting strips and obstruction of road. So they're looking to increase the maximum width of any combined ingress and egress driveway measured along the street line. So the requirement is 9 and the measurement is actually 10 meters. To allow the planting strip to consist of a stormwater management facility. So typically in a planting strip, you need an unbroken hedgerow or some kind of plantings. However, the stormwater management facility is located right here, so they're looking to recognize that. As well as where a driveway or walk extends through a planting strip, it shall be permissible to interrupt the planting strip instead of a 3 meter requirement, it's 4.4 meters, and see it's right in there. And also to reduce the setback, and it's fun here, from a driveway, so the existing driveway is here. This property, as I mentioned, is zoned residential. And so they're looking to reduce the distance between the driveway and residential zone from 9 meters to 4 meters. And again, these are all to recognize existing conditions. I'm sure everyone remembers exactly what I just said, but we'll go through it in detail as we go through the application. So procedurally, notice of the application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. Notice of the public meeting was provided on July 15th, 2025 by email to all prescribed persons and public bodies and to every person and public body that has provided a written request for notice. Notice of the public meeting was circulated by regular mail to every property owner within 60 meters of the subject property on July 14th, 2025. Signs were also posted on Television Road, and notice was also posted on the township's website. Commenting agencies were circulated a copy of the application for review and comment on May 30th, 2025. Just a brief overview, this application was subject and had the benefit of pre-consultation with township staff, as well as some applicable agencies. So there was comment with respect to the application at that time. There were some comments with respect to existing fill on site that needed to be addressed along with stormwater management. Whenever you have a new development occurring, it changes drainage patterns. So stormwater management is very important to make sure that pre-development and post-development match and that you're draining this into the stormwater management facility and not to your neighbor's properties. It was also required that the applicant confirm with local First Nations if an archaeological assessment was required. There was also the comment about outdoor storage. So it's very specific in the zoning that outdoor storage is only permitted on the north and east side of the subject property. As the proposed expansion is going into the outdoor storage area that exists today. This will need to be addressed through site plan approval to ensure that outdoor storage in the remaining areas is sufficient. And of course, this would also have an impact on stormwater management, so that would have to be addressed as well. It was notified as part of the application for pre-consultation that Hiawatha First Nation did not require an archaeological assessment, but they did reserve the right to review any of the studies that were submitted in support of the application. The application was also circulated pre-consultation to the city of Peterborough, having jurisdiction over Park Hill Road, the county of Peterborough Public Works Department having jurisdiction over County Road 4. Neither city or the county required traffic studies or analysis of this intersection. They believed that the increase in traffic was marginal and did not warrant such study. The township also remains silent as they do not have jurisdiction over that intersection. So following the pre-consultation, the requirements in support of the minor variance and site plan approval applications, the application need to be supported with a planning analysis. as well as stormwater management plan, which were both submitted along with the minor variance and site plan approval application. To date, staff has only circulated the minor variance application. The site plan approval application would be circulated for review and comment to agencies subject to the outcome of the minor variance. It may or may not have an impact on how the site plan moves ahead. So after the application was submitted, we circulated to agencies. We received
Well, it's just for a moment.
absolutely.
Ava's just gonna fix your microphone.
Thank you. Apologies, all I didn't want to yell at you, but you're leaning in. I thought, oh. Can you hear me? Oh, that's so much better. Yes. Now strain my voice a little. Oh my goodness. Okay. Mr. Chair, apologies, everyone. Hopefully we can hear online.
Mark, has a comment.
Just a quick, Diana, thank you for going through all that detail. The one thing I will say online for those of us who are going through Zoom, when you're pointing out specific areas on the site plan, for the most part, the cursor was not referring to those areas. So selfishly, I'm struggling to kind of correlate, those areas. So it didn't really show up. So I'm sort of flying by the seat of my pants on that. So I apologize for that.
At best, it is a very busy map in front of us, that's for sure.
Indeed.
Thanks.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Please let me know if we need to identify any other areas for clarity. I can definitely work with the clerk. I know it's hard to see, so I appreciate your patience on that. Sorry. So with respect to agency comments that we received after the application was circulated, ORCA, Autonomy Region Conservation Authority, did provide comments and said that additional stormwater management information will be required at site plan approval. So there are additional details. ORCA's scope of review is limited to natural hazards. So when it comes to additional engineering in terms of stormwater quality and quantity, that stormwater management plan will have to be peer reviewed by the township's peer reviewer. So it will be reviewed by ORCA as well as the township's peer reviewer. The county public works department, the city traffic engineering staff, and MECP provided no comments or concerns or objections to the application. And those are all the comments that we received from circulated agencies to date. With respect to public comments, we had received one at the time of report completion. However, since the report was completed and circulated, we received numerous emails and correspondence from the public. So unfortunately, they didn't make the report. However, all of those comments were passed along to the applicant who is here today and will be speaking to those comments. In respect to the scope of the comments, a lot of them had to deal with either existing conditions, which may not necessarily be an appropriate discussion at this meeting because the scope is supposed to be related just to the minor variance application. But there are a lot of comments related to the proposed development and future drainage, landscape buffers, the height and architectural look of the expansion, parking reductions. So a lot of those comments came in and they were very operational and technical in nature. So it would be, I believe, inappropriate for the township to respond on behalf of the applicant. So the applicant is here to speak to those comments today. However, if you have any questions from a township perspective, we'd be more than happy to answer those questions. So with respect to the minor variance itself, Section 45 of the Planning Act provides that tests must be satisfied in order to support a minor variance application. So I'll briefly go over those tests. The first one is, does the application meet the general intent of the official plan? It is our opinion that it does meet the general intent of the official plan. The use is permitted under the industrial designation. It's also permitted, and the site specifically permitted under the special policy area. The rural designation promotes dry industrial uses. It is the predominant use that is expected in this designation, and of course, it's subject to availability of water and sewage disposal. With respect to industrial sites in settlement areas, the sites will be developed to minimize potential impacts. They need to be limited in area where they're adjacent to residential uses, and they must provide sufficient parking. So with respect to the expansion itself, the location of the proposed expansion is in the northeast corner of the subject property, removed and pushed as far back to the extent possible from the surrounding residential development to the west of the subject property. In addition, there are no additional employees that will be hired as a result of the expansion, removing the need for additional parking. And in addition, all the landscaping and planting will remain. There's no expectation or need to change. However, because the application would be subject to site plan approval, there is an opportunity to look at additional plantings and bufferings with the expansion, just to add that additional buffer between the site itself and the residential uses, and to help enhance the buffer from that side. With respect to the second test, it is, does the application meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw? It is our opinion that it does meet the general intent of the zoning bylaw. While the minor variance seeks a lot of relief, a lot of the relief that's being proposed is existing situations. And it's really just to recognize those and bring it through into the zoning so it can be properly implemented. That impact has been there for over 20 years, so there's no new land use compatibility issues, there's no new compliance issues. And as I said, that impact has already been established. With respect to the other variances being sought, the expansion to the northeast side maintains the westerly setback, which is the setback that is closest to the residential development, so the sensitive receptors. So it exceeds the 78-meter setback requirements, so there's no issues there. It's located on the other side of the existing development. We know that the Turtle Conservation Center is located south of the subject property, so there's no further encroachment towards that development. And the location of the expansion itself is actually located adjacent to an industrial use and a rural zone, which are not considered sensitive land uses. Oh, sure. Sure. So the westerly setback is located here. So this is at 69 meters, which is existing. The proposed, I believe, is 81.5 meters away.
Which one are we looking at? The red light or the arrow?
Sorry, it's both because the people online can't see my laser. Sorry.
I'm looking at both of them. One's going one way, one's going the other.
And then with respect to the northerly setback located here, there's another industrial development that's located north of the subject property. And then to the east are rural lands, and rural and industrial uses aren't considered sensitive land uses. So the location is an appropriate placement to be located closer to those non-sensitive uses and further away from the residential uses down here to the west of the property, to Martina. And then the Turtle Conservation Center is located all off the map here, but yeah, to the south of the subject property. In addition, there is a request for an increase in the maximum floor area, and this just supports the growth and expansion of the local business. The third test is the proposed use desirable for the appropriate development or use of land? Again, we are of the opinion that the use is desirable and appropriate for the use of land. The property is both designated and zoned specifically for this use. The location of the expansion is located on a relatively flat area that can accommodate the additional development. It is located as far away as possible from sensitive land uses. And it is also showing that there's a growing need for the business, which is good for local employment, as well as the local economy. And then the final test is the appearance, minor in nature. Because the expansion can be accommodated on site, and maintain the existing, setback requirements and buffering from the adjacent sensitive land uses, the balance of relief that's being sought, today are really existing conditions, and that impact has already been established, without any new land use compatibility issues. Finally, with respect to provincial planning statement consistency, applications need to be consistent with the PPS. The subject property is located within the hamlet of Donwood, which is considered a settlement area, which is supposed to be the focus of growth and development. It also promotes mixed land uses that efficiently use land. The PPS also directs that planning authorities promote economic development by encouraging intensification of employment uses. Of course, this is based on appropriate transition from sensitive land uses to employment uses, and as already discussed, for the various reasons, we believe that it's appropriate given its location adjacent to non-sensitive land uses, meeting the setback requirements from sensitive land uses. So we believe that the application is appropriate and minor in nature. As such, we recommend that committee approve the application. And I am available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. My mic is on, and I thank you. Now, are there any questions from? Sorry about that. Speaking closer to the microphone. The applicant would like to make some comments. Please take them on.
Good morning. You sure I'm talking close enough to Mike? Good morning, my name is Sean Legere, the principal planner, RFA planning consultant, for the agent for this application. With me here this morning is Brent Harry. He's the owner manager of the Peterborough Trust and Floor facility that we are discussing this morning. And so I'll begin by, I thank my friend for very thorough explanation of the application and to provide some really good context and history. So we just want to more go through the comments that have come in and to provide answers to the public comments that have come in, which were just the past couple of days have come in. I want to start off first by just clarifying the setback to the west. The setback referenced by my friend was 80 meters, which is actually to the loading space. So we have a couple of measurements on there. The distance to the building is 91 meters. So it's just slightly further away. Just wanted to provide that clarification. So we have ordered our responses just for a bit of flow. So I'm going to go talk about a few of the planning items. Mr. Perry here will then speak to a few items, return to me, return to Brent, and then I'll just wrap up. So there'll just be a bit of back and forth as we go through the comments between the planning and non-planning comments. I did want to separate them right off the bat by saying there are a number of items that are related to the application, as referenced earlier by my friend, and then there are a number of items that are not related to the minor variance application. That would be for site plan control, which we have filed that application. So I want to start with parking. There is a question about the potential future addition of shifts. And this is a single shift facility. There's only one shift every day. So the way the bylaw has been set up, and that was one of the first things I recognized, but it did appear to be set up for a multi-shift operation, which is very typical. You think of a typical classic industrial operation. It spans multiple shifts, so you do need twice as much parking to deal with the shift change. This facility will only be a single shift facility. Therefore, in order to properly implement the official plan to provide adequate parking, it just simply wasn't necessary to provide multi-shift parking. So that is the variance, and my friend touched on that earlier about the test of the variance. Part of that, and this is a big thing, is there's a couple of items about numbers. The numbers may be quite a difference between what's permitted today and what we're requesting. And that is not a test of the minor variance. The change in the number is not part of, it's really more the impact that that change creates. So it's not the number itself, and that's through as a planning item, and when you're looking at minor variances, it's not the number itself, it's the impact. So next I wanted to touch on the removal of the setback requirements for accessory buildings. The zoning bylaw does not contemplate, it was something that was put into the site specific zoning, likely as a result of the Ontario municipal board hearing, now the OLT. So the zoning bylaw does not contemplate 30 years and so on from property lines. It doesn't contemplate that accessory buildings must be attached to the building. Detached accessory structures are absolutely permitted already in the zoning bylaw. And and I'll touch on that again, it's the garbage building that we're discussing more specifically. So I just wanted to touch on that. There's a question as to the proposed height of the building. That is 9.5 meters. This is the main building I'm referring to. So the height of the addition is proposed to be 9.5 meters. So that would be from the grade to the midpoint of the roof is how that's measured. And so that is slightly below the as of right maximum. The building location, there's a question about potentially rotating the building, and it's just its general location and orientation. My friend touched on that. It has been oriented and positioned to maximize the separation from the sensitive land use to the west, which is the residential. That has been maximized, and so rotating it would absolutely affect functionality, but the compatibility with the sensitive land use has been maximized in terms of that setback, which is the 91 meters that I referenced a moment ago. And so rotating the building and so on, it just would greatly affect the functionality, but also it's based on the surrounding land uses. The location and orientation would be the compatibility component with that has been maximized to the sensitive land uses. Lastly, I believe my friend may have mentioned that there have been a number of consultations, which Mr. Perry will get into in a moment, with the Otanabee Conservation Authority. And I did want to confirm that no permits are required or have been required for the site. So I just want to make sure that was clear. I'm going to turn things over now to Mr. Perry to review the loss of outdoor storage and the truck frequency, and then I'll come back to go on to some of the non-minor variance related items.
Thank you, Sean. I'm Brent Perry. I'm just a correction. I'm owner and president of Peterborough Trust. Bruce McHugh, my business partner, owner, he's manager of Peterborough Trust for and that. So just to clarify that, so there's no confusion. I'm going to start by saying that the past owners of this property were Al and June Kurtz. They no longer own the property. There was a comment made in some of the information that came through about there being a history of disregard for rules and regulations. I'm not gonna argue that point with my grandfather. I won't. He was set in his ways. He was at the time when they developed this property, he was in the early settler. He was in his early 70s, 73, 74. You couldn't tell him what to do. That was the difficult part. I am not like that. He has not owned this, Alpha has not owned this property since 2021. Bruce and I own this property as of 2021. Yeah, it's dealing with different people. Regarding the loss of outdoor storage, The new automated production line that we're looking to put in will allow us to operate in a much more efficient, just-in-time fashion. Since all of our products are custom built to order and we don't stockpile them for stock inventory, the shorter production times mean we can significantly reduce the amount of finished product stored at the yard. This shift towards a leaner on-demand manufacturing will naturally decrease our reliance on outdoor storage space, even as production capacity increases. Further to this, as part of our operational improvements, we're also going to be reducing the variety of raw lumber material lengths we keep in stock. This change is made possible by the precision and the flexibility of the new automated line, which allows us to cut material more efficiently on demand. As a result, will require less yard space for our raw material storage. Regarding truck vehicle frequency, deliveries are dictated by the customer's build schedule. Again, everything we build is custom. My crystal ball is no better than anybody else's, but an estimation I would suggest that we may have at peak capacity another 3 plus or minus deliveries per day over what we can currently do right now.
Thank you. I'm just gonna return now to the items that were commented on that are not related to the minor variance application, but we did want to make sure that we touch on all of those for everyone's benefit. So there's a question about the look of the building. It was previously part of a site plan control review. Previously, under previous legislation, you could comment on that. You can't comment on that anymore through the new legislation from the provincial government. However, I will confirm that we have filed a site plan control amendment application. There is currently an agreement on title. So we've already filed an application to amend the agreement, and we have provided plans, all building plans and floor plans and elevations for the proposed addition. And the look will be the metal cladding, will be very, very similar to the existing metal cladding on the building. So the way the look of the building will be, it'll look quite similar to the existing facility, save and except the brick area. It's the balance of the metal cladding that's will look like that. I wanted to touch on stormwater law for a moment and the current runoff flow. So I believe my friend may have mentioned that you're not allowed to drain onto your neighbor's property. It's just not allowed. It's not permitted. So I just wanted to confirm that the current flows, generally speaking, are to the south and the west. So I just wanted to confirm the existing flow. There's some commentary about fields to the east of the site. So I just want to confirm the existing general flow. I've reviewed the stormwater management report previously prepared, as well as we do have a letter from Engage Engineering that has reviewed the current situation and the proposed layout, which I'll get to in just a brief moment. And so I just mentioned about the pawning on the east plan. So we're not allowed to drain onto the neighbor's property. It's just simply not permitted. And so it should be occurring today. There's an existing perimeter swale around, existing retaining wall and perimeter around the existing industrial operation. And so the property, again, it all drains to the west, there's a storm facility there, and then outlets to the west, not the east. But I believe so there's the main point of the comment was there's a fill pile just outside of the zoned area. The fill in the northerly area of post drainage. So development of the fill. So there was a fill was brought onto the site at some point. However, it has been flattened. Gravel has been put on it, and Brent will speak to more to that in just a moment. And so with that, again, Brent was talking about, but there's some gravel on there. He'll get into a bit more detail, but the gravel was not compacted and it just, that fill does not remove infiltration capacity as it is. That was the main question, does it remove infiltration capacity? Our engineer, Engage Engineering, has reviewed the matter. An as-built survey has been completed. That's part of our plans in the stormwater management plan that was filed with the township. And our engineer did look at this. The area will continue to drain to the west. And so there's no impact of this area to the drainage of the property. It's still gonna flow to the west into the storm facility. But the point, the existing facility and its capacity, that point was taken. And we'll be reviewing that further with the municipality and to see if we need to make any adjustments to our stormwater management plan. So I believe I've run through my items. And I'll now turn these over to Brent. There's a number of items related to garbage and fencing and fill and trees. And so he'll get into a number of the other comments.
Thank you. Garbage, parks, so on and so forth going away. We do take pride in maintaining a clean and organized yard, and our staff are diligent about keeping the site free of loose materials. That said, we recognize that strong winds, the odd tarp here and there, especially during storms and overnight, can occasionally carry lightweight items like tarps or packaging offsite before you have a chance to notice. Whenever a neighboring resident has brought this to our attention, we've responded immediately to retrieve and clean up any debris. We're committed to being good neighbors and will continue to monitor the yard closely, especially during high wind conditions, and respond promptly to any concerns raised by the community, by the abutting residents in the area. Fence repairs, there was a comment made about fence repairs. We have already been made aware of this issue regarding fencing that needs repair, and we are going to be using our own staff to perform the repairs as needed. Bruce is managing this with our staff to get this done. We may have to ask to go on to some of the abutting property owners' property to do the repairs. The hedgerow, the buffer area is fairly thick. And so we may have to ask to go on people's properties to be able to do those repairs for fence. With that being said as well, when it comes to dead tree removal, we have had treescape in already to fix up some issues with some trees that needed to be removed. We're going to have them come back again and go through and try to get the word, parse out any dead trees within that hedgerow along our western property line along the back of the house on TV Road. We've already committed to doing that. And Bruce is gonna look after having that done through treescape as well. Clean fill versus wash cement. There was a comment made about wash cement being back when we developed property being used for fill. I have no idea where that comment comes from the standpoint of what was seen being dumped, because all material brought in was clean fill and in compliance with the municipality's instructions, and requirements. Now, clean concrete is also classified as clean fill though. I can't say I honestly don't remember. I don't believe there was any concrete dumped in there. There was concrete put into the foundation, concrete for all the retaining walls and all the work that had to be done, lots of concrete trucked in. But there was no concrete used for fill on the property. The 2004 flood, there was comments in comments received about the flood in 2004. Well, the flood of 2004 was the 1 in 300 year storm event that hit the city of Peterborough and surrounding municipalities. The city of Peterborough itself was under 4 feet of water. East City had a river running through the middle of it. There was comments also made about a lawsuit that Alf Curtis Home Purpose and Peterborough Trust was involved in, to do with the flooding of Mr. and Mrs. Eggleton's property. Alpers Home Improvements and Peterborough Trust were released from that lawsuit. We were not, we were partway through, we were released, we were found not to be liable. And it is my understanding that the insurance companies for the municipality, the county of Peterborough, and Alpha June Curtis personally dealt with the Eglinton's legal counsel. I do not know what the outcome of that was. All right, I honestly had no idea. Alf and June, well, Alf would remember now, unfortunately, he's Alzheimer's and dementia, he's in long-term care now, unfortunately.
So,
It was set up privately, so I don't know what all went on, so. So the history of the fill pile, the southerly fill pile. This fill was removed from the Alpers Home Improvements property in 2013, when we built our warehouse over there. It was relocated to the Peterborough Trust and Floor property. Al asked me to inquire with our lawyer, I remember this plain as day, if it was allowed to place the fill on this area of the property. Our lawyer, Richard Taylor, responded letting us know that the fill was able to be relocated on the property. This was done consciously so that the fill was not placed within an area that Orca did not want it placed. During the time the fill was being relocated to this area, Orca attended the property to investigate what was being done. They took measurements and elevation shots, and in the end, they had no issue with the fill being relocated where it was. They did, however, want us to ensure that we weren't adding any water runoff to the east, south, or west, and water the runoff to the north, wanted the runoff to run to the north onto our own property, our parking area. So at their direction, at Orca's direction, we sloped the surface of the fill that was being put in there to the northwest with the installation of a berm along the southern and western edges, so that no water runoff could enter the areas west towards the ditch that runs at the center of the property and to the south into the wetlands area. They wanted to ensure that any water runoff would run into our parking area so that it would not find its way to our stormwater management pond. So that entire area of fill is sloped towards, if you looked at the map, it's not up anymore, but if you looked at the map that was up there, that entire area of fill is sloped running towards our stormwater management pond, our parking lot in the direction of our stormwater management pond that's on the site. The current conditions of the fill pile, purpose of the gravel cover and Orca's, and any Orca's consultations. After placing the fill there and dealing with the runoff that was coming off of it, it was clay and topsoil, and the runoff that was coming off of it into our parking area, there was a large amount of sediment running off. And creating a real mess in our parking lot, and that sediment eventually would flow and make it, because the way the stormwater is graded, it would make it to our stormwater facilities. And that was not a good thing by no means. So to clean that up, as I said, the runoff from the topsoil and clay surface on this area was creating large amounts of sediment runoff in our parking lot, which is finding a way to our stormwater ditches and pond, as well as was major mess. This is why the surface of the area was covered in gravel to eliminate sediment from flowing into our parking lot in rainfall events. The gravel that was spread in this area was graded only. It was purposely not vibrated and or packed because we wanted it to remain permeable to absorb rainfall and moisture. While this was being done, Orca again attended the site and found that there was no issues with what was being done and no permit was required.
So just to include all the responses to all the many questions that have come in, I hope we've addressed all of them. We went through them in detail to try and make sure we hit everything and address everything. And so the last thing I just wanted to touch on, the sequence of events, was mentioned a couple of times in this. So there was an understanding from the historical Ontario Municipal Board hearing back in the early 2000s that it was largely to do with the southerly area. So as I think it's been mentioned a number of times, there's the land use designation from the official plan, the zone, it's all specific to the northerly area, and that the southerly area is just rural. And so again, no permits are required for any that fill, as mentioned a number of times. There's also a site plan agreement registered on the property. It's registered the whole property. So that's what we say on title, we mean the whole property. And so if there's any change, development was classified as development, so buildings, septic systems, all these kinds of things that are classified or defined as development. If those are at any time in the future proposed for the southerly area, that would constitute more planning review, planning application, and a formal amendment to the site plan agreement. So there'll be an entire process, an entire planning process. If any time in the future, that southerly area, if something is proposed that's defined as development, that requires planning review and approval, there will be future, if there would need to be future planning review, planning applications, and a formal amendment to the site plan agreement that is currently registered on title. Just to go back to the very beginning, we have filed an amendment application to the existing site plan agreement for the proposal, which is the expansion that's proposed. So we have filed that application. It's a major change to the plan. So we have filed an application for that. So there will be a formal amendment. We prepared already, as was required, stormwater plan, a drainage plan. We've done an as-built survey, so we know exactly what's going on today. Again, there's all these historical data available, but we needed fresh data. So we went and got that to prepare a proper drainage plan. So just wanted to make sure that was clear about the southerly area. And so thank you very much for having us. We're here to further assist in answering any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. An exhaustive response. From the committee, any questions that you might have? Rod or Howard? Mark? You have a comment, Mark? Yeah.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the overwhelming concern of the neighbors is drainage. And I'm just wondering, there are other concerns, obviously. But if I read through the comments consistently, drainage does seem to be the overarching significant concern. I'm wondering if Diana or someone else can kind of comment on the scope of our purpose here, approve or not approve or dig deeper into the minor variance versus existing or future drainage concerns. I know that there's been a hydrologic survey done by the engineering firm. They don't seem to have any concerns, but I want to have clarity before we move forward as to sort of where the line is between existing concerns and this minor variance and how that might impact existing concerns from a relatively lay person's perspective, to be honest.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Porter, for the question. So anything that is related to existing drainage concerns is now an enforcement issue and should be dealt with today. So if there are drainage patterns that are not consistent with the requirements, so draining on site in the way that it was planned to and entering the stormwater management facility, but rather potentially being spilled over or perhaps outletting in inappropriate places, that needs to be documented and go through an enforcement style approach because it's an existing condition that needs to be dealt with now. The scope that you're dealing with today is related to the minor variance that is in support of the expansion. And because the application is also subject to site plan control, lot grading and drainage and stormwater management is required to ensure that any new development will not negatively impact or drain onto neighboring properties, and it can be engineered and demonstrated that drainage can flow either into the existing stormwater management facility or another facility, however the engineers decide the methodology that is appropriate to handle stormwater. So what you should be looking at today is the minor variance application as it applies to the expansion, knowing that stormwater management, operating and drainage will be dealt with at site plan approval. And it will be peer reviewed by the township's peer reviewer as well as ORCA to ensure that quantity and quality controls are properly in place. And so that's sort of where that line is. So anything that exists today is an enforcement issue. Anything that is related to the application, it will be addressed at site plan approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question, from,
So, and I don't know who to ask. With regards to the parking spaces, and you give an explanation with regards to having one shift. Is that written? I mean, could you decide next year that everything goes up and then all of a sudden we need 2 shifts or 3 shifts? I mean, that's my question. Is it written and
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can answer part of that. I mean, again, Brent, you can clarify anything, but there just simply is no plan for that. However, if there were changes in the future, adding another shift from a planning perspective would be a major change because then you need a lot more parking, which means we're gonna have to go through, which I started touching on earlier, we would have to go through a formal amendment to the site plan agreement that is registered on title. That would be considered a major change. You can make little tiny tweaks here and there, but from my perspective, that would be a major change, adding shift, which means you need a lot more parking, which means you need to add parking. Which means you need to amend your drainage plan, you need a whole other parking pad. That's a major change that require a formal amendment that would go through a planning review in the future if it were to occur. Hopefully that has answered your question.
and another one, Ron.
is to follow? Just to follow up on that, the noise issue, and I don't know where it fits in the scheme, and it might not fit into our jurisdiction, but the fact of the matter is, obviously, the building currently would make some noise. The new building plus is anticipation of a lot more noise, or do you have any thought to that? Because that was one of the concerns of the residents, and nobody appreciates noise in the background more than I live in close to a gravel pit.
So I can answer part of that. It's interesting, this is brought up, we were there just this morning, and doing another site visit, and, the only noise we could hear was the Lafarge development to the north. That's what we were hearing, all the trucks, and there's some banging and such. However, through pre-consultation, it was determined that a noise study was not required as a part of the application for this proposal. So it just wasn't required. Part of this has actually already been addressed through the previous planning approvals and the Ontario Municipal Board hearing. So there was a comprehensive planning review that occurred at that time for the original facility. So the building has been set back to the appropriate setback. There's planting strips, all these items to mitigate these, the noise and other industrial related activities. That's already been addressed and mitigated. They call it mitigation measures. And so that's already been done. Our proposal is going to be further away from the existing facility. The setback is increasing by about 20 years. So that's what I mean by I can partially address your comment. Maybe I can ask you to speak to noise a little bit, Brent.
So with the new facility, what the item that creates the most noise in our plant is would be our saws. And we're not adding any more saws to our number of saws to our operation. We're replacing one of our saws with the new saw for the automated line, which is gonna be located in the exact same location as the existing saw now. So there should not be any more noise than what they're hearing now. And I'm gonna be honest with you, we did go around, Bruce and I went around and seen, all but two, because we, a couple of times, all but two abutting property owners that faced on the TV road. And with those, other than those two, because we didn't get comments from them, everybody was of the same opinion that they don't hear anything back there. With that tree buffer that's behind them, they don't hear anything from there at all. So. I figured that answered your questions.
I might ask, now, we have some public here, if they have any questions or comments.
Just a couple of them.
And you have to go,
Yeah, I'm gonna see it.
But please go to the microphone so that we can hear you online as well.
Sorry.
I'll stand there, your road.
Oh, no, you can put him there. Hi, I'm Mark Angleton, and I'm back to the trust plan on the south side. I know he's been trying to be very, oh,
You were, well, just let you figure out. There we go.
thanks.
Uh,
I'm very glad you finally helped us with our concerns with the trees from the ice storm and the damages it's been doing to our place. I have a couple of things. First, the noise. Yes, there is noise. Not bad, but enough that I had visitors on the Saturdays, or and the machines are running.
Excuse me, if you could speak directly at the mic.
Oh, not to you.
Not at here, talk to the mic.
Nothing personal. One for the noise, yes, there is noise. It's not banging in front of us, but it is enough that our company, when we're sitting outside, I've gotten used to it. They comment on it. Now, they said, I know at the very first, and when we first started the building, you said that the doors had always been closed. Well, that can't be happening because it gets so darn hot that you have to have the doors open. So we adapt to it, but it is there and it gets noisy. The trucks coming in now, they have pretty well stopped the trucks from coming in at 1 in the morning. Trying to get turned into the laneway, and it's right in front of our house, and they're back and forth and back, who's trying to get in. Then they parked beside us, which caused our windows to rattle, and they were raining all night. That was a concern. I noticed that it's not as prevalent now. They've managed to stop the people from coming in at that time of night, but it was very disruptive. So we're trying to work it out. The other thing that we had was, obviously the drainage. There's a ditch or a little creek that runs beside us. It runs the creek is east and west. We have noticed in the last few years that the creek is now pretty well dried up. This creek has been running constantly for years, since we moved there. It's always been a creek. It always runs down and goes into the drainage beside the television road that runs right inside. So it dumps into there, and then of course it goes north, probably across and over into the autonomy. The last at least 5 or 6 years anyways, if not more, I've noticed a decrease in that water coming off of the back from the east. And that our ditch is pretty well dried and it's not being maintained, so therefore the little creek is now filling in with grass and just overgrowth. I don't know what's changed the run of the land, the run of the water from the back fields. I know that behind our place, we've had to put in an old drainage that runs north and south. And it runs under the fence that they have built beside us. and it's supposed to go into the creek. And that stops our water from building up from the back, from the east. We used to have, a lot of water sitting there till we put this old drainage in. Because if we didn't, we were walking in puddles in the back of our yard. Now, of course, right now we're not doing that, but when it rains, it does, and even, in the spring and in the summer, I can't walk back there to do my gardening because I'm sinking in the water. Also, the people next to us, when I walk into the back of their place, it's the same thing. The last few years, it's just been getting worse and worse, and I don't know what's changed the run of the water, but it isn't running the way it used to run. So the back is now getting more overgrowth, it's getting the weeds and everything else, and it's also, I can't use the back of my, it's always green grass, I can't use the back part of my yard, it's too soggy. Plus this, I always have green grass. But, we have to be careful, when we're walking back there, because I do sink into it, so I don't know I don't know what the creek is, the creek used to always be full of water, and now there's nothing. And I'm afraid it's gonna grow in, and there's gonna be another water, that creek isn't gonna be taken enough, and we're going to be swamped again. Those are my concerns, and really, with the back history, I'm kind of paranoid, because of what I went through in 2004 and 5, I haven't forgotten. And it's always been a fear for me. I think that's something to really look seriously at, because that's a big concern for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
If I could comment on that, I just want, and I understand your concern. I will say that where Mrs. Eggleston lives and her neighbor beside her is on the south side of our entranceway, and it backs onto the residential zone, rural zone, thank you. The rural zone south of the developed property, okay? So I honestly have no idea what, because there's nothing that's been done down there from that standpoint.
Well, I'm kind of thinking it's coming from the back.
Hang on, we mustn't be, all be speaking into the mic. Question and answer at the mic.
Okay, so it's only been since, that back part was leveled off. Your extension on, I don't know, it's a storage area or something to the south of the building. And it's just been since then that we've started to notice a change in the runoff. Like I'm just assuming, but when everybody else is getting a lot of water down there, the water has been rerouted somewhere, because it is a low lying and swampy area. That's what I kind of think that.
Yes, an answer, and then, I will have a comment, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. I just want to clarify, with the neighbor, is your land drying up or is it wetter? Which one? I was just wasn't quite clear on your comment, so I just want to clarify, because I believe you were mentioning it was getting drier. Is that correct?
No, drier from when?
Get back to the mic, please.
It's confusing. So
Drier
is it
from where?
drier or wet?
Drier or wetter?
Yes.
It's the same.
Okay.
There's no change, except that now I'm finding it's getting more wet. It was, I guess I should rephrase that. It was getting a little bit drier, and I could walk in the back between my vegetable garden and my flowers. Now I am changing my walking to go back there. So I guess I would say that it is getting worse. Now this last month, it's so dry, nothing's.
Okay. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify, I was a little confused as to the comment. The only sort of overarching response to that is weather patterns do change over time. You have wetter periods, drier periods. So that kind of those patterns, they do change over time. And so for, as another example, we do environmental impact studies for wetlands and things like that. Wetlands can grow, wetlands can contract. These kinds of patterns, they do change over time. And so periodically you do have to revisit the matter. For example, environmental impacts, they only last for about 2 years, and then you're required to take another look because of the passage of time. So these kinds of things do change over time. It's not necessarily within anyone's control. All we know is that we've done a survey of our site and have confirmed that the drainage from the property will continue as it was, which is already approved. That specifically, I believe the main principal concern is with the fill area. That has been directed very specifically and carefully to the stormwater management facility that's on site. There's nothing that we're aware of. We've done a fresh topographic survey, a fresh look at it with fresh eyes with a different engineer. They confirmed that these patterns will continue to the storm facility. Specifically, they did look at the fill area and confirmed it will continue to go to that area of the site. So just wanted to put some overarching comments to try our best to respond to that comment. And I do apologize. I did have that written down on my list, but I apologize for skipping it. I was not intentional. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any other comments from? Yes, please, the last one.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I thank you, but, it is a concern to me. And if I can't use my back end of my garden or my grass because of the flood, because of the water sitting, and it's so soggy, it's gotta come from somewhere, and certainly I didn't put it there, so that's my concern. I have one more concern, and that's, I just want to clarify the laneway. And I guess my husband was over and you showed him the map. I find this map very confusing. I just wanted to, when you say you're making the laneway wider, where is it, which way is it going to be extended? Like, is it coming towards me or is it going to the other side, to the north side?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's an existing condition, so it will stay the exact same as it is today. It's just wider than the zoning permits, so they're recognizing that under the minor variance, but it won't change.
No, I know, which way you're gonna widen it? Like, is it going to go to the north or is it coming towards the creek?
And through you, Mr. Chair, again, there's no widening.
There's no widening?
There's no widening. It's just at 10 meters when it's supposed to be at 9 meters.
Over the length of it.
It's the width of the laneway. There is a requirement for unobstructed landscape strip as well as ingress and egress. And so the zoning requires that it's 9 meters, but since 2005, I believe, it's been 10 meters. So they're recognizing that it's wider than the zoning, but that's existing today. So they're not going to be widening it at all. It's just recognizing the change in numbers from what the zoning requires to what actually is developed on site.
Okay, sorry, I just, when you said widening, I'm thinking, okay, now which way they're gonna widen?
Not a problem. Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a lot of information and yes,
I found
site plans have a
that
lot of
very
info.
confusing,
Yes,
so,
no, that's okay. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
So it's not getting wider. It is not getting wider than it currently is. Thank you. I'm good. No comments. Do we have online attendees who might have a question? Mark, okay, we'll get to Mark in a moment.
Yeah.
Rocco.
Yes, good morning. Everybody hear me okay? Okay. Yeah, so I sent a list of comments and some of them were addressed, and I thank you for the time on that. But we need to further look at that, okay? Because we're just not talking about a simple let's talk about today and then send it to site planning. We also have to now look at the history. And just from what I just heard, where you had the widening of the highway and there was a variance and it's out of compliance, and now we're going to allow that go through, that's the kind of concern that I have about little things as we go forward. So our main concern has been the water. Certainly the amount of standing water that's going to now be addressed. I mean, you had the January 25th assignment. And sorry, I'm Joseph Ronca. I'm here. I live at 2865 Television Road, and I'm here on behalf of my mother, Jana Ronca, to address this issue because we're the ones that are going to be mostly affected as we have the property on the northwest side. Our concern is the fact that you're going to now put a building that is now 48.8 meters, obviously close to our driveway. And along with that, with the building is now going to have extra runoff that's going to saturate our area. So basically, we need to know how this is going to be addressed because certainly, as you have it before, you have a wide area that could spread out. Now, because it's a building, you're going to have very specific, I don't know how many drain pipes you have, 6, whatever, but now it's going to be very focused. And we have a small drainage area that we share together. And I did send some pictures after the fact of drone shots. So to the committee, you may see those as well, just to see what we're talking about. But we have to recognize the fact that certainly since this development has gone in, we have seen standing water last much longer in our traditional seasons, which is usually in the spring, and dries up in the summer. And obviously now it's staying longer. And because of that, we found major storm events such as the Derico of 22, certainly the windstorms of last year and the ice storms of this year. With the amount of standing water, it's stressed the roots and has obviously made it very fragile, if not killed some of them. And our concern is that, again, going forward with this, it's going to remove the much needed buffer that we're supposed to have on our property. So although we recognize that, right now is a dry event and that's fine, but we've been getting more and more climate change and obviously more significant weather events. I need to have it addressed how they're going to properly manage the water that's going to be draining into our area and taking it away. As some of the pictures that I also included, picture 1, I don't know if you can throw that on the screen, but you can see that there is trees that have been taken down and it's just not snapped halfway through the trunk. It's actually pulled up from the root ball. And the only way you can do that in the midst of a forest is certainly when the roots have been certainly weakened. So I wish to have that addressed. I know you've mentioned some of the other questions about the height and the look of the structure. So again, if it's going to be consistent and same, all right, I appreciate that. I've been told that this is obviously not the area to talk about it, but obviously the cleanup, and I appreciate Mr. Perry addressing that. But even as early as you saw my pictures, and that's picture number 2, you can go around and you can see in that corner there is garbage that flies in those areas. And I understand that, yes, it's certainly our responsibility to let you know of that. But I would certainly hope that, there are walkarounds on a regular basis because, again, some of those are large tarps and whatnot that need to be addressed. And as you have more items come into our area, I'm concerned that we're going to have more of that happening. The other item is, although you've addressed about reducing the size of the parking in order to accommodate your true use of your facility, doesn't mean that obviously it can't change. If I understand correctly, your planner states that any new additions or anything like that will have to be a new plan has to be filed to address that. So again, we just need to make sure that, as we do things, we need to understand that how things are going to be changed. Because again, we can talk about little things, but as we saw with even that example just right now, the minor variance, stuff gets slid through, and then after it comes on us to be able to have to sit there and say, how did this happen? Right? I need the committee to also understand that, we talked about Elizabeth, the planner, talked about the current volumes, and that I understand that the city does not feel that there's going to be a requirement change or traffic study needed to be done due to the fact that the limited traffics. But again, we're 98% residential here, and obviously we have families and everybody who walk along the streets and nearby. And certainly you also have an intersection now that's controlled by a stop light only. And with any kind of stuff, albeit Brent said he might have plus or minus 3 new deliveries, it could only change tomorrow due to new landed a business. So we need to have that in the back, understanding that as we all want business to grow, as was mentioned, everybody wants that. We want more employment, especially with the current economic news that we've been getting within the city. However, we need to make sure that it's done properly and all items be accounted for. I too asked a question about the opportunity to request to rotate the building because, again, from that standpoint, it could be a good consolation in the sense that it allows your operation to wish that you want, get what you want, and to minimize the amount of standing water that's going to be dumped closer to our areas. I understand that that may not be a possibility, but it certainly needs to be addressed. You're talking about the noise levels. Certainly, you may not hear that from inside the buildings and whatnot. And as Miss Eglinton mentioned, that obviously, you may have to open your doors to get some cooling and whatnot. It's just that's not the only noise you have. Obviously, you have the trucks you have go by. I know you have forklifts and planner and other equipment that run by. So we just need to make sure that, again, as a neighborhood, that we work together to ensure that we coexist, together. So those are pretty much my questions and comments out there that I'd like to put on record and that hopefully you can adjust. One of the things I forgot to mention, and again, I can open up my area to go have a look, but certainly that standing water has significantly undermined our driveway too. We have a paved driveway, and because the water's standing there in the freeze and thaw, I have ruts in the driveways and whatnot. And these are all items that your company has been there for 20 years. I understand that. And these are things that certainly need to be addressed on a regular basis. Obviously, this is an opportunity to really put a hyper focus on it solely because you're going to be putting a large scale building that's going to have to dump somewhere. And we need to ensure that it's not going to dump in an area that we don't want it to. I thank you for your time and look forward to your responses.
Thank you very much for your questions and comments. Mark, before we go for our answers, Mark also had a question from online.
Thank you. At the risk of sounding redundant, I think this was probably question again for Diana. With regards to, I want to make sure that I understand correctly. So you'd said in my initial question regarding the stormwater management, there's 2 aspects. There's site plan that would come subsequent to the minor variance approval, presumably, that would deal with that specifically. But if I understand correctly, you also said, and I think this is where some of the local residents are concerned. So I want to be clear about what our options are as a committee. You mentioned enforcement of existing concerns, not the future concerns that materialize from the potential approval of the minor variance. Is that, am I delineating that correctly? A, and B, what power, if any, does the committee have to direct or be involved or recommend to address some of the existing some of the existing concerns? Or do we have any? I just want to be clear what our roles and responsibilities are here on that.
Thank you, Mark. As chair of the committee, I would say we are here today to talk about the future, not the past. We are bringing the approvals up to date of what has already occurred in terms of how wide is the laneway and how the setbacks and et cetera. The policing of runoff is not our concern. That is not the current concern of this committee of adjustment. That would be the committee of policing for this one. So I think we can recognize there may be some issues, but those issues are not of concern to this committee. What is of concern is the decision we may make today, does that exacerbate existing situations? Because that would be a silly decision for us to make. That's just my editorial comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, agreed. Yes, I agree with that comment. I have nothing further to add. The roles and responsibilities of this committee is to make a decision on the application before them today, recognizing that there might be existing issues and the appropriate enforcement mechanisms need to be employed to address those concerns today.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My board. Thank you through the chair. Just a comment, and then I'd like to make a motion whenever the chair is ready to receive that motion. Just a couple comments, and I believe the planning department here and with our staff have covered everything there is to cover for this minor variance. Water issues, I believe everything has been looked at and covered off by ORCA, by all the different agencies. And I don't see any alarm bells for this committee to not approve this application. I've been around a long time. I know this went on for a long time. There was a lot of, when it went to the OMB, and anyways, the trust plan is there. And we thank you as a municipality for bringing employment, bringing industrial lands to the township. It's taxes. And as long as all of that, everything has been approved by all the different agencies, I don't see why we would want to stand in the way of progress for our community and our taxes. So if whenever we're ready for a motion, I would like to move a motion. Yeah, no problem.
Excuse me, can I speak?
We're sure.
I don't want you to end it before I have to say what I have to say.
Please take them on. Just the mic should be on. It will be. No, it's not on. Push your button.
I'm a bit of a mechanical technical moron. Okay. Okay. Yeah, my name is Mary Young, and I made written comments to the committee. Mr. Perry has answered them, but I disagree with him on many things. I'm the person that said that there has been a history of a disregard for rules and regulations, and I think this is being ongoing, whether the owner was Al Curtis or whether the owner was Brent Perry. In 2024, I presented the Township Council and ORCA with a timeline of activities that have occurred on this property. And it seems to me the property owners do have a history of pushing rules and regulations to the limit, or ignoring them, or at times disobeying them, or failing to follow the expected order in which events are to occur. I mentioned the Eagleton flood, but I'm going to come back to that. I mentioned clean fill. Well, when site plan was implemented, it stipulated clean fill was to be placed in the north, which was to be rezoned. And what residents saw were trucks running day after day from 7 in the morning till 6 in the evening, every 5 minutes, carrying what we thought was washed cement. It certainly wasn't clean fill. I would say approximately 1,500 loads came in. He says that he brought in something which is allowed. Why not bring in what you were told to bring in, which was clean fill? I'm told that that you can get the cement for nothing because the cement companies have to pay to dispose of it. So to me, and this is an example of simply not disobeying rules. Now, I have addressed council several times about I call it the berm, the mound of earth that was dumped in the northeast portion on the northeast section of the south portion of the property. And Gage Engineers, I think, was then say that it's 3,400 meters square around, and it's got a depth of 15 to 20 feet. Okay, first of all, residents were concerned about this because it's zoned rural still. They were concerned because this was dumped without any stormwater analysis or any measures to deal with the changes to the property. And we removed it, and we believe it removed approximately a quarter of the storage space for water if you get a severe storm event. And it could result in the flooding of homes. And as somebody said, with climate change, severe events are becoming more common. Now I'm going to talk about the Eagleton flood. When the trust plan applied to rezone the property in 2003, they brought in massive amounts of fill into the low-lying area of the north portion, and they raised the entrance lane. And they did this before the zone change was approved, or before the storm site plan was implemented, or before there were any stormwater measures to deal with the changes to the landscape. Residents believe that the removal of this storage space for water in a severe storm event was the main reason for flooding the Eagleton property, which is just south of the entrance lane. What happened was, this is not in my notes, but what happened was my pond to the south, which is the lowest point in the wetland, filled with water. It overflowed and it went to the north, which is low lying. Previously, you had a lot of water come down 2 years before that, in 2002. Previously, it would have flowed over the lane into the low lying area to the north, but it couldn't. It hit the lane, which served as a dam, backed up, and flooded the Eagleton property. I don't know if I have it with it, but Mark certainly has a picture of the house surrounded by water in the morning, and you can see the lane in the back serving as a dam. So we believe the dumping of this fill in the northeast is deja vu. Fill is dumped again with no stormwater measures to deal with the changes to the landscape. And it caused problems before, and it could cause problems again if we get another major event. Township didn't have any limit, and still doesn't, on the amount of fill that can be brought in. And I have suggested that they do limit the amount before stormwater analysis is required. Now, the berm has also caused problems to my brother and I, to our fields, to the east. There's increased ponding there, and the wet area has greatly increased. This mound of earth runs adjacent approximately to 300 to 400 feet of our fields, which are low lying. And they get runoff from a drumlin to the south and from a drumlin to the north. And we believe that this mound of earth is interfering with this runoff and entering the wetland. So it doesn't get to the wetland and the central channel, which Mark called the creek, I think, but the central channel, which was dug, that carries water north to the exit ditch that goes west. Is this making sense?
A map would be useful at this.
Yeah,
point.
it would be, I had, I gave you one when I presented my information. But I was told I can't have one here.
Through you, the chair. Mary, I have the package of documents you sent. I see the various photos which have been circulated to the committee members, but there's no map. There's
It's
just
not a map, maybe maybe it's I used the wrong word. It's a diagram which shows the trust plan, it shows the north section, shows the residents.
Yeah, I can bring the map up that was up earlier, which shows all of that information. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, would that make what I'm saying clearer?
I think that would help. I think that would help.
Martina, I believe it's probably page 8 of 25 of the package that was circulated. 7 and 8, perhaps.
I think our issue is, where, we see the pictures. But where is that relative to the development map that we had earlier, which is that big question. So where is your, we're gonna bring that up on the screen now.
So this map, yeah, okay, so there's a central channel that was dug.
Oh, okay, so we're talking
It was
about,
dug by the owner before the Curtis Terry.
okay, you can go back to the mic. So we're talking about property that is south of the plan in question.
We're talking about this.
Yes,
Okay, it has a wetland, I think it's here,
right,
and it has a wetland buffer. It has a central channel that was dug by a previous owner to drain the property.
right. Okay,
And that channel carries water to the exit ditch, which runs just south of the entrance.
can you go back to your mic then? Okay,
Okay.
continue.
So what I said about the flood was that beyond this map, the lowest point in this, in the south is my pond. It's, I don't think it's on that map. But it, on the day of the flood, it overflowed, and it went. My pond, I think, is off the map, it's here. It's the lowest point, and so. When the water came, my pond overflowed, it went north. And it hit the entrance lane, to what is the entrance lane now, and it had been raised. And the area beyond the entrance lane to the north, which was low lying, had been filled in. So it backed up and it flooded the Eagleton property, which is the first one south of the lane. Okay, prior to that, water flow would have flowed north and it would have gone over the lake, into the, low-lying area. So we believe the removal of storage space for water without stormwater measures to deal with the changes can cause problems.
Okay, well, thank you for expressing those concerns. Now, if I might say, if you're talking about that the laneway caused the water not to flow north, is that true?
No,
The flood?
I'm saying with the Eglinton flood, and this is just to show that you can't bring in massive amounts of fill without stormwater measures to deal with the changes, or you can have trouble, okay? And we already had a flood, we believe, largely for that reason. We believe that the Eglinton property flooded because the lane was raised and fill was brought into the portion beyond the lane, which was low lying. So when the flood came, the water couldn't flow over the lane into the low lying part. It hit the lane, which was raised, and it backed up, and it flooded. And we believe it's largely responsible for the flooding. Now, what I think this has to do with the removal of storage space in the south is that he brought in fill in the northeast section of the south portion, which is zoned rural. And he did it without any stormwater analysis, so there are no measures to deal with the changes. So we believe if you get a severe event, you could get flooding. But that is an if, it could happen. But there are things that have happened. So our fields are to the east of the south portion, or to the east, south and north portion of the trust plan property. And this berm of earth runs adjacent to about 300 to 400 feet of our farmland. And it's low lying and it gets runoff from two drumlins, a drumlin to the south and a drumlin to the north. And this drumlin is interfering with the runoff from going into the wetland. So it's backing up in our fields. And the wet area has increased significantly. That's one thing. The other thing is that in 2021, the mound of earth was leveled on the top and packed and covered with gravel. Now, Mr. Perry says this does not interfere with the absorption of water, but my brother and I think it does. We think that the runoff has increased. And he also banked the berm. The berm is banked to the north, to the west, and it's banked to the south. So water and snow melt can't go off in that direction. We believe they come east into our fields, and that also has increased the wet area. And another matter, the Eglinton's, who are right beside the exit ditch for the water, say that after site plan was implemented for a number of years, water would rush down that ditch in rainy periods, but recently, it's been 3 or 4 years maybe, it's been reduced to a trickle in rainy periods, such as this spring. And so I wonder where the water's going. And I don't understand what the engaged engineers have said about the water on that berm. They're saying it's running north, I think, and then to enter the ditch to go west. And this doesn't make any sense to me. They say they've reviewed a topographical survey, but this makes no sense to me. They're saying the water on the top of the berm is going north and then west. I question then, why Mr. Perry didn't, bank the east portion top of the berm as well as the west and south. He didn't bank to the east. Well, that doesn't make sense, and I also wonder why the flow in the exit ditch has been reduced. And I have several questions that I have, which should be answered. I think there should be a stormwater analysis done. Because I think the drainage in the south is tremendously, changed. And so we don't know really what's happening or why, because there's no stormwater analysis. I have questions, I won't go through them, there isn't, we wanna know if the storm, if it's removing storage space, is it increasing, flow to our fields? Is it causing water to back up? There are all sorts of questions.
Well, I think that you've made some good points and we thank you for that. Now, of course, we're back to what's the issue of today? If what has been done needs to be policed and fixed, that's not the issue of this committee of adjustment. This committee of adjustment is looking at the application to move forward. We can either say yes, we can say no, we can say pause and think about it.
Okay, sorry, the reason that I mentioned this was that the engaged engineers do mention the amount of earth in the south, right? And I don't agree with what they've said as to how it drains. I don't think it drains north and to the west. I think it's coming into our field, and it was mentioned in the information I received from engaged engineers. That's why I have mentioned this, okay? It's my main issue. Now, as for the variance itself, the two things that concern me there are the parking, because it's a big building and the parking has been tremendously reduced. And I fear that in time, they'll have to move, probably, maybe not very long, they will have to move from, one shift to more shifts, and this will require more parking. And I think they may well then move to the south, and that will impact the people there. And I also fear for the reduction in the setback to the north, because I think storage space could well become an issue, and it also will have to move somewhere. And we think it will be to the south. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Laura, did you have a question or? No.
Guess my thoughts were, it seems that we're certainly and totally appreciate everything that everybody is saying. There's a lot of issues outside the perimeter of our focus today. And I don't disagree that they certainly should be addressed, because changes on a piece of property may affect others. And again, I'm going to have faith in the fact that the site plan controls are going to be our catch-all where jurisdiction does apply that we don't have. And drainage is a big thing, on and off. And again, there has been obviously changes. I totally agree. They do need to be addressed. I'm not sure what we can do as a committee other than emphasize that. But as far as what we have jurisdiction over today, it is the changes that have been in the past that we're going to do from housekeeping, and some changes to accommodate the new building. But with our decision added to site plan doing their job, which you really need to bring, I feel, these comments back to those folks working then on site plan controls of what's going on, both water on and off the property. And again, they have the opportunity to put restrictions or make changes for you, which we don't. So I'm going to speak in support of this application when the time comes, based on the fact that our jurisdiction and what I see and what I've heard from answers certainly satisfy my needs that everything possibly at this point has been done to start the process to move the site plan control, which again is going to let you have another kick at the can to express your concerns, and please do that, because we have faith that the processes are going to remedy hopefully some of your remarks.
And I'm just told that we have another comment from online from the public. We're dialing you up. Yes. Brandon.
Yes, hello, it's Brenda Ivy. Thank you. I live at 2787 Television Road, right next to the Turtle Trauma Center and Mary Young's property, Mary and Jerry. And my property is quite long, longer than the other properties in the central area. So we're south of the Curtis property. Back in the day, when this all started, they had about 15 acres. I don't know if it's hectares or acres. Half of that was supposed to be set as a with a hold, and I'm not sure what happened in that situation, but that pile of soil and fill that they brought in, I don't know, has anybody actually walked the property to see how large that is on the committee? It is big. Mary alluded to the fact that there's probably 1,000 or 1,500 truckloads of soil that came in there, fill. That's a lot. It's huge. I've been out there and had a look at it with a drone, and it's a big pile. And that's what's blocking Mary's property from draining properly. It's also filled in a lot of the wetland, which was supposed to be protected, and pushing that water towards my property. The back half of my property right now is green because there's so much water back there. In the spring, only in the last maybe month or so, I've been able to walk back there because it is so wet that it's filled with water. It's just not draining properly. I know we've talked about this drainage issue now, this whole meeting, but it really is a serious problem. And I don't know Brent well, but Alf Curtis did a lot of things he wasn't supposed to do. And I think we need to really look at this cautiously because it's going to ruin a lot of people's properties. This water, I can't use half of my land back there because it's so wet in the spring. I can't access my pond because there's a pond at my property as well. And back in the day with the planners from the original planners, they wanted to drain their property to the low pond that already existed, which was my pond. So obviously there were a lot of mistakes made. You guys weren't on council at that time, but a lot of mistakes were made, and we're worried that more mistakes are going to be made or rules are going to be broken that they're not following these rules. Marg Eggleton has had that ditch she spoke about. It used to flow like crazy with water, and it's dry now. So why is that? That mound of soil is not just a little pile of fill. It's huge. It's huge. You can see it on your plan there extending into the area that was supposed to be preserved. That wetland area was supposed to be preserved. And so this is where we're all coming from. Rules have been broken by this company, and we don't want to see it continue because it's affecting all of us. More trucks, more traffic, more noise, more dust, more parking. There's kids on bikes running up and down the road all the time. It's super dangerous for them when these trucks are moving. The council in the day made a mistake allowing this property to be built. It was agriculture, and to go from agriculture zoning all the way up to industrial, that's a huge jump, and it should never have been allowed. But that pile of fill on sensitive land, that was a big issue for us all. And just the grading. I mean, you're talking about grading on the existing land and drainage on the existing property that they've got. Sure, maybe that's working. I don't know. But that big mound of soil that they've put in is blocking. And maybe they'd be willing to take that out, because that's a pile of soil that's really screwing everybody's property up. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Brenda. Is there anyone else online that we have not heard from? Good, thank you. And I think the comments period is over. The decision period is approaching. Wetlands are Orca, not this committee. And Orca has made comments to this committee. So we are dealing with the latest input from Orca. Policing, as I've said, is not the subject of this committee. And we therefore, we can be advised by that, but cannot take action on that basis, I believe. So I think, Harold, go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Anyways, I'd like to, hello. Oh, it's me. So I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Anyways, again, through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a recommendation that we follow the recommendation or accept the recommendation, and based on that, we move forward.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded by, I see Ron Manley. Is there any other comment from Mark, Rod, or Harold? Mark?
Thanks. I just wanted to echo your comments, Chair, and those of Rod. I'll be a little more candid, perhaps, and this is opinion. I genuinely think there is drainage concerns, that the residents have some valid concerns. My issue, as you have both pointed out, is the scope of this committee, as I tried a couple times to make sure it got absolutely crystal clear, is unfortunately is not the scope of the committee. So being responsible for looking at the minor variances, I don't think the variances are the issue at hand. I think the bigger concern are existing issues with drainage. I've learned a lot from everybody who's put input in here. I'd be willing to talk with them further if there's any need or thought on that. And I do think that, probably the flow of water across the property, across the back part of the property, the southern part, which is not in the scope of this minor variance review, probably has been changed. I suspect that is true. The challenge I have is that our focus is here, and what we're being asked to look at by the residents is here. And I don't think that we have the power, the mechanism through the Committee of Adjustment to really affect that. I think that the next phase, if I understand correctly, would be the site plan and making sure that things are addressed from there. And I agree again with Rod and everyone else saying, take your concerns there. If the policing of existing challenges is valid, my hope is that they will help address that at that point. But I don't know that this variance request, as it applies to drainage, has a huge impact on the existing issues being observed and documented by the residents. So I feel that I'm not in a position probably to decline the approval of this on that basis. Even though I sympathize with their concerns, I don't think that's in our scope. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So that officially hands up if you agree and support the motion. All in favor, none opposed, and so the application is approved. Now. What's next? Obviously, this has been an amazing 2 hours. Of committee and community involvement, and we thank the community for being so engaged. Because we too belong to the community and we are engaged. The township staff. Tell us now what goes next and what's the appeal process.
No problem, that for me, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So with respect to the next steps, there will be a notice of decision that has to go out. The township has 15 days to issue that notice from the date of the approval. And the appeal period is 20 days long and it will start on the day the notice is issued. So that date is to be determined, but it will be on the notice itself. Everyone here today who has requested a copy of the decision, as well as the property owners 60 meters surrounding the subject property, will be notified. And so you'll see that appeal period. Like most planning applications, there are no third-party appeals. So the only rights to appeal are the applicant, the municipality, or what is defined as a public body under the Planning Act. So there's a bunch of agencies under the Planning Act that are listed. So that is the next step. Once that is cleared, we will move on to site plan approval. There's a lot of work still to come that still needs to occur through that application. I will note that site plan control is not a public process. However, it does not mean that the applicants cannot and probably should engage with their neighbors continuously throughout that process. Obviously, there were some issues today, so yes, in keeping with being a good neighbor, continue on with addressing and supporting your neighbors through the application at the next stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and thanks everyone for staying tuned in. And we will have another meeting on a date to be announced. And need a call to adjourn the meeting. Earl says let's leave. And Rod agrees. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.